All right, everybody, what's going on? This is Andrew, and today I'm actually here with some fellow co-hosts here. I have Jason and John sitting with me, and unlike last week's introduction episode, we're gonna plow through the terrible pain that I'm in after having major neck surgery, and we're gonna talk about some monsters today, specifically of the lake proportion. That's right. Today's episode is about lake monsters, and it was brought to us by John himself, who happens to live next to all of those nice big Great Lakes in Ohio. So we can go ahead and we'll start with that. How are you guys doing?
I appreciate the way that you said Ohio. Very
Well, I
enthusiastic.
was raised by the Drew Carey show, so you have to say it correctly.
It was very enthusiastic, is what I
I like
meant.
I like how you doxed him right there,
Yeah, thanks.
as if anyone's gonna come to fucking Ohio.
By the way, here's my address. Here's my social security number. While we're at it, yeah, no, I literally the lake is like a couple blocks that way. It's right there, and it stinks. And cigarette butts end up in my backyard when there's rain or storms or wind. So it's a good time.
Well,
Um,
that's because Ohio is so flat. There aren't any hills to catch all of our cigarette butts that we just throw out. Your road system might be better, but there you go.
Is it?
Now I have cigarette
it-
butts everywhere.
Well, there are hills and mountains, just not in Northeast Ohio. They're in the center of the state. Little known fact: there's actually a ski resort somewhere.
Northeast, the only F5 on the East Coast went through that area.
I hope it happens again.
Tornado.
I'm waiting. Please bring it on. Yeah. So yeah, my name's John. When I'm interested in paranormal stuff at the age of 6, I was molested what I believed to be a Bigfoot, who just happened to have the same name as my uncle. That's my
Uncle Squatchy.
that's my introduction to everybody. So I don't know. Do we need other introductions? Probably not. So we're talking about lake monsters, right? So I guess the first one we can talk about is Bessie. That's probably the most well known one. That's what the AHL team here in Cleveland, the hockey team, is named after. The Cleveland Monsters, named after Bessie, which is the Loch Ness Monster of Northeast Ohio. First sighted in 1793, actually, by the captain of a boat called the Felicity. He was shooting ducks, just having a good time, and he saw this serpent-like creature in the water. He was probably very drunk, like most ship captains at that time and probably now are. We don't have a whole lot to do here. So, like, even back, imagine 1793. Okay, no internet. You're in Ohio. You're on the lake,
Yeah, they're drinking their switchel.
drinking switchel, eating biscuit, shooting ducks. What else are you gonna do? So it scared the crap out of him. He said it was like 5 meters long or something like that. There's been sightings since then. There was like a major sighting in the 70s, and I think there was a sighting in the 90s, and even recently people say, they see Bessie. There's some theories behind Bessie, like maybe it was a log, or maybe it's a creature from some Jurassic age, or it's a native legend. And that now I've never personally seen it myself, because if I did, I would have made sure to have captured it and brought it back to my house. But on the positive side of things, there is a beer made by Great Lakes Brewing Company called the Lake Erie Monster.
I was going to bring that up. I found that in my research. A couple of things that I have found kind of interesting when researching this topic. Okay. When you brought it up, I was actually excited about it because I am a multi-time a year watcher of Penn and Teller's bullshit. I love that show. I love how they break everything down. They take any subject and make it fucking look ridiculous and silly. And they of course have episodes about these things that I enjoy, like the paranormal. And there's one episode in particular, season 4, about the Loch Ness Monster. and they find the two clumsiest, dumbest looking people to go out onto that lake and theorize, and they throw some fish out in a sack and find nothing, and then ridicule them for 40 minutes, and that's entertaining to me. But one thing that kind of jumped out at me is the deathbed confession of the surgeon photo. Okay, now the surgeon photo, anybody who knows anything about the Loch Ness Monster or the paranormal, or in fact doesn't know much at all, because this is kind of like the photo of all of the photos. This is right up there with Patterson-Gimlin. It's the photo you think of when you think of the Loch Ness Monster. Now, this was taken and it was published in 1934. Excuse me, I have a dry throat from massive surgery. But so this photograph was taken in like 1934, and it was published, and it kind of became the proof. And you know, you see like the long-necked creature coming out of the water, and proportionally, I think has always looked off and not right. I almost don't want to dispute the fact that it's a fake photograph, because I've always thought, even as a child, it just didn't look right. The creature is way too small, so for what they were trying to accomplish, if this was a hoax, it worked out. It just didn't. It's just the aspect of the the silhouette just never looked right to me. But so in 1994, 60 years after this picture is taken, some guy claims to have taken the picture and convinced somebody else to have it sent and published under their own name, who, by the way, was a surgeon, like well respected in the community. This dude is going to risk everything on a photograph of this monster for some guy. And that bothers me a little bit, because so often deathbed confessions are now used as a way to cite how things might be considered, well, you know, bullshit. But I'm wondering here if nobody saw. I just totally just splorshed my throat with some sore throat antiseptic. But that's all it takes, is just some guy to say, yeah, I made that up, and now I'm old and I'm dying. And then everybody just decides scientifically to take somebody's fucking word for something versus actual having evidence, which is the thing that we're supposed to have in order to provide any type of proof of what we are saying. Somebody who sees a creature is called either a liar or mistaken, but somebody who says that they lied about seeing a creature is taken for their word. When you can take a look at even Sasquatch himself, so many of the Patterson-Gimlin hoax perpetrators, I'll call them, all say that, you know, it was my cousin, my uncle, the whole town was in on it. And, you know, we made this suit, and then we went out, and, oh, by the way, here's the footprints that my uncle took out and attached to his feet and walked around. It's never the guy who did it. It's always some other person. And to that, I think that should be looked at and labeled as incredulous from the start. That's what's bullshit. If I was going to hoax Bigfoot, that's how I would do it. I wouldn't go out with a suit and risk getting shot in, you know, Pennsylvania, where hunters and people who like to shoot guns on the reg are just waiting for a creature to shoot on their yard. I'm going to go out with some clogs on my feet, and I'm going to make some footprints, and then I'm going to say, hey, remember those footprints you looked at? Well, guess what? That was a hoax, and now you know who I am. So to me, I think when you're hoaxing something, that should also be on the list of things to look out for. These deathbed confessions that completely, I think, sideline what Nessie is shouldn't be taken as factual. They're silly, they're nonsense, and they're bullshit. So, what that tangent that I just did, what I'm saying now is, if I can look past a photo that I think might also just have been faked anyway, because the confession is dubious to me, well, then I think that in Ohio, where you guys never saw a monster before, a drunk captain in 1973 saw one. I think
1794.
seven. Okay, I think that
1970.
leads.
You're close. You just went like this.
I have a touch of the tisms. It's just a matter of, we are predisposed onto whether or not we're gonna believe any of this stuff to begin with. And then even after that predisposition, we're now then either going to look for proof and evidence, or we're going to allow ourselves to believe in the imaginary. And on the opposite end of that spectrum, you have the people that will then not believe for the same specifics. So I think that while it might be kind of silly to think that we have these lake monsters in the Great Lakes of America, when you look at the broad horizon of lake monsters, they're kind of associated with all major bodies of water, and that can come down to a couple of things as well. Either there's some big fish, there's actual monsters, or people aren't very creative one way or the other. It's the same reason that dragons existed in Japan and also existed in the lore of the ancient Europeans. Did dragons exist? Probably not, but we certainly talked about them and drew pictures of them on cave walls and stuff. So somewhere in the human zeitgeist, these monsters existed. Does that make any kind of sense?
Maybe. Whatever you got.
Absolutely.
I don't know about drawing on the cave walls dragons.
Looking, I'm researching it.
What I'm saying is, I think if enough people say that they saw a lake monster, at some point there had to have been something that somebody saw that was kind of a lake monster.
Well, I think if we're going to take anyone's word for it, it should definitely be Brenda, a 47-year-old female visitor of Lake Erie, who in 2001 went for a swim and got bit by what she claims was Bessie. Brenda. Actually, we can call her out by her full name here. Brenda McCormick, if you're listening, thank you.
We got to ask, how did the Great Lakes drain? I know
Oh,
there's
we're getting
what?
scientific here?
Yeah, there's a lock system, right? A large creature could not escape the confines of that.
Right, it would be stuck in the lake.
So if it existed in the 1700s and there were multiple of them,
It's still
they
there.
could
And
just
Lake
be
Erie,
dead.
That tends to be the argument there. And again, I'll use the Loch Ness Monster because that lake is actually quite small. And the argument is that there isn't enough food to support any type of creature of that supposed size. So, what you have then is people no longer believing in this thing or allowing it to exist when it could have just existed and died. All of these things could have existed and died off.
point out, Lake Erie is actually a lot larger than people think it is. I don't know the exact date, but something like 10 years ago, maybe not even that. A small passenger plane left Cuyahoga County Airport for Canada, and it went missing. Crashed into the lake. Bodies were never found. The plane was never found until some body parts started washing up on shore, and they'd searched what they thought was a massive portion of the lake. So, if you can't find 6 people from a plane wreck, are you going to find Bessie?
Well, it depends on how big Bessie is, I guess.
It's true. I mean, I would assume Bessie's probably bigger than 6 humans, right?
I assume, like maybe whale sized, right?
I would.
Like small
Well, I
whale,
mean,
small
she's been
whale.
described. Yeah, she's been described as a serpent, which doesn't mean anything because you can call a snake a serpent if you really wanted to. But apparently, if you really want to find Bessie, the best places are the south shore of Lake Erie, which is right here in beautiful Northeast Ohio, or on
We
Pelee
got the.
Island, Canada.
Do we have the tourist division here? Like,
There is a sign on the west side of Cleveland. I don't remember the beach name, but there is a Bessie sign out there. It's like a warning sign, like one of those yellow caution signs. Welcome back, Andrew. Thanks for
that's
throwing up
actually
on
pretty
audio.
awesome.
Yeah, I'm surprised nobody's stolen it. People steal stop signs and stuff all the time, but nobody stole the Bessie sign.
Oh, yeah, anything that has 69 or 420 and it's gone.
There's
Yeah.
some decorum and respect that
I was just,
even
that's what I was gonna say.
the most asshole teenager will have towards something along the lines of a monster statue.
Also,
or
obviously, the
sign.
monster, it's in Erie, right? Lake Erie.
Yeah.
It doesn't travel between the Great Lakes. I don't know if that's plausible. I don't know how the lock system works.
I would think not. I think they would know. You know, they let boats through these lock systems. They would know if there was a massive serpent traveling between them.
How deep is Lake Erie? Let's grab that.
Yeah, what is the deepest point?
I do know that Erie is
210
huge.
feet below the surface.
Yeah, that's pretty deep.
If there's something down there, we wouldn't know.
I've been to Erie one time, and my experience was short. And the area that I was at was actually like insanely not deep. Like I was able to go out probably hundreds of feet, and the water didn't come up past my knees.
Well, there's a shelf.
Yeah, like
I do have a photograph here.
once you get out past that area,
Drops
it's like
off.
insanely deep. It's a huge drop off.
Oh, they call it. It's a Great Lake.
That must be why.
So we go. There's Cleveland, Lake Erie. That's shallow, but once you get up towards Niagara Falls, the deepest point is up that way. So if there was a large there's also a little area that it potentially could not squeeze through if it, like, some of them fish and stuff, they just keep growing.
Yeah.
It might not just be able to easily access this canal.
I think the important question here is: can Bessie swim up the Niagara Falls?
Going to Canada.
I would like to think that any monster would be able to do that.
Well, why couldn't she? If she's long enough, right? Well, she's going up to Canada to get health care.
All that government salmon that she can eat.
Yeah, that's what she needs. She can't afford the salmon down here in the States.
Poutine buffet. Come on.
Just go to Pizza.
Oh God, I forgot about Pizza.
Pizza.
But to move on to other Essies in the Nessie, Bessie, Pressy legacies.
Bessie's Bussy.
We're going to talk about Bussy. That's what, no. That's for the late stream.
That's a different podcast. Lake Superior, home of the Algama at Algoa Rock, has the Pressy, which is, another one of these monsters that all kind of fall in line with this lake serpent deal. And this is
the same one.
That's the thing. Can it be the same one? I think one thing that everybody needs to, at the beginning of this, take a look at Native American lore, okay? And fundamentally, I think everybody kind of agrees that we don't have to do dances to make it rain. And that certain, I don't know, other rituals don't make the sun go up. So right off the bat, people
Also, a lot of these fucking
discredit
rituals are
Native American lore until it gets to paranormal stuff, right? This is something that I find incredibly interesting because typically when you know a new building is built and it's haunted as fuck, and there's all these stories about Wendigos or whatever, right? Well, that's because they built on an Indian burial ground, right? So there's almost like a willingness to accept one thing and not the other that is across the board in the paranormal. So you either have to accept it or not accept it. And every one of these things come with Native American lore, at least in the Americas, obviously. I don't think Native Americans had much to say about the Loch Ness Monster. But
well, why would Native Americans have anything to say about the Loch Ness monster?
They didn't even know that Ireland existed.
I don't believe they've been to Ireland.
So you're saying they're not sharing ideas, that there's not like a collusion of thought.
And you're telling me the good people of Sinn Féin never gave them this information.
Right, and I'm sure if their paths crossed, they would be more concerned with spreading smallpox than small talk. Okay? So, I'm glad that got a little bit of a pop. So every one of these have some type of Native American lore to them, and this one is no different, and it exists, and it's in that Lake Superior. Next to that, you have one that isn't quite a serpent, but more of a lynx, or you described it as a panther, and that's Mishibishu. I think I'm pronouncing it right.
Well, I didn't describe it as panther. That's what it translates to. It translates to underwater panther.
Yeah. So there's this one that
you see that may be more interesting than a serpent creature because there are plenty of water snakes that can get big, but like a panther creature getting big.
And to that effect, when you said snakes, something you could also consider is eels. Mm-hmm. Something that I've learned.
They live off the batteries we throw into the lakes.
Well, on top of that, if an eel, or any other creature for that matter, is impotent, it tends to grow larger in size. I found that out recently because I saw people describing...
Doesn't work that way with mammals.
Well, I mean, I've seen some pretty big neckbeards in my day, so it could lend some credence. But you could have
mirrors in your house.
Yes, mirrors everywhere. You have this eel concept where it can't sperm, so it just gets fucking gigantic. So then becomes a theory is that these monsters are actually just eels that can't come, and then everybody should then accept and then feel bad for it. But then you get to this one, which is you got your underwater cat, and this one gets crazy into the lore because it calls upon like there are thunderbirds that come and fight it, and there's some deep mythology to this one.
Well, this one has a whole kaiju theory.
Yeah, it's insane because it was fought, against by thunderbirds for the native people, and to me, that's like the most incredulous one, obviously, because I mean it's a water cat, but people have seen this thing, and one of my favorite, I don't know, urban legends that originally got me interested in this kind of stuff was the Beast of Bray Road, which is a literal werewolf story.
Mm-hmm.
So, if I can sit here and allow myself to believe in a werewolf, then I can certainly believe in a water cat that fought uh, Zapdos.
What we have tree cats, we have mountain cats. Why can't we have water cats?
Exactly. There you go.
That's scientific.
So
Exactly.
I do have a map right now of the lock system and the depths of all the Great Lakes. Superior is by far the deepest at 133 feet, 406 meters.
There's a song about that.
Yeah, Lake Erie is bullshit. That's like nothing. So if there was a monster in Lake Erie and someone saw it in the 1700s, it would definitely have moved towards Lake Superior as it fucking kept going.
What if it uses the shallower lake to feed?
Is there more wildlife in the shallower lake?
I would imagine it's probably easier.
I think. Well, if you go by ocean biology, most big predators come into the shore area to feed, where there's typically more life. So
people.
Just by ocean biology, that is a credulous thought.
Well, think about it.
But that would fuck up the whole thing because we put the locks in. So this thing may be dead at the bottom of Lake Superior.
I mean, maybe Brenda killed it in 2001.
Did she?
She could have.
I mean, it's something bitter, and it made news.
Unless it could have fell down Niagara Falls into Lake Ontario.
Yeah, see, it tried to climb it.
Well, if it was in Erie, it would fall down. It would just go right over the edge, just flopping right down. That's 802 foot, 244 meter proper units at the bottom.
That's really sad to think about. If that's the case, rest in peace, Bessie.
Bessie, dead with the Ressie.
But that would explain why there are similar creatures saw in the different lakes.
It would, because it's a family maybe traveling. They're on vacation.
All they wanted to do is...
If we're going to look at it logically, there just can't be one.
How could one? There has to be more one.
There would have to be more. Some of them are probably...
Why couldn't there be one? Why couldn't there be one? A single turtle in the ocean... A single turtle in the ocean can live hundreds of years. And that's one turtle. That's one.
I'm not worried about its lifespan. I'm worried about its speed.
Yes, but there is also not one turtle. Because when turtles are born, they get fucking executed on the beach.
Yeah, exactly. So
that's why they have a long lifespan. There has to be like that.
When you look at the sea turtle and how like 80% of them are dead after they hatch before they even get to the ocean, they go on to live hundreds of years and still reproduce and mate. It's not crazy to think that there's a creature in these lakes that can live hundreds of years and be the one thing that has been seen multiple times over, because we have proof scientifically that fish and turtles and creatures that live in the water, as long as they don't eat each other, live for extended periods of time.
Yes,
the lifespan.
Ecologically, the turtles have the long lifespan because of the high death rate of newborns.
That doesn't mean
ecologically,
anything.
This thing must, if it exists, has a natural predator that can destroy its young before it can get to be.
Yeah, it's Brenda.
Yeah, Brenda's down there with her fucking
Brenda McCormick.
She's in there with her
Coors Light.
No, banquet. Come on, it's Brenda.
and her menthols. She's down there
filming Girls Gone Wild party at the lake.
Pretty sure Brenda was like 47 at the time of this.
Are Newports the trashy Ohio cigarette? Is that?
No, we got the Virginia Slims up here.
Ooh, really? That's the popular deal. That's something.
Yeah.
Not even Virginia.
Nope.
But then
Close enough.
we have that interesting cat, and now we're on to the Nain Rouge Spectre, which I just discovered today. I'll just read the little brief excerpt here. Uh, Tales from the Ottawa tribe tell of a demon dwarf who comes up from the Straits of Detroit, not unlike Kid Rock.
Brenda.
Not unlike Kid Rock.
Unlike the other Great Lakes monsters, this little red devil is described as being about 2.5 feet tall, wearing furry boots with red eyes and gnarly teeth. This creature loves to be flattered, and those that cross or belittle this imp seem to get a string of bad luck in which they never recover. The founder of Detroit, Antoine Cadillac, was said to have seen the name
Antoine
and
fucking
dismissed
Cadillac.
it despite being warned about it. And then it goes on to kind of describe how outside of being stuck in Detroit and governing it, that he also had to go on and live a pretty terrible life outside of that. And then
And he would
William,
be the one named. They named the luxury brand of cars after him, right?
I had assumed that, but apparently when you look into his
believe-
life and the
like,
string
no,
of
not
bad luck
him.
that he had,
I believe his full name was Antoine de la Mothe Cadillac.
Well,
He's
have you
also
ever
governor of-
driven a Cadillac and owned one?
I have. Yes.
Yeah, bad luck. String of it.
I've always had fun. He was also the governor of Louisiana, wasn't he?
well, he was still governor when he was sent to Louisiana, but he was basically kicked out of Detroit, sent to Louisiana, where he was soon kicked out of his governing position, and then sent to France, where he spent some months in the Bastille prison. So this guy had a very long string of bad luck that people surmise came from the fact that he crossed paths with this lake monster that is actually like a little devilish imp.
So a Jersey Devil.
Essentially, is what this thing
It
is.
sounds more like the Loveland Toad.
You said this thing
along
was
those
wearing
lines.
boots.
But this Jersey Devil is more like a horse demon thing, right?
Yeah. But if this thing's wearing boots, that means it knows leathercraft.
When you say horse demon, though, I'm glad you brought that up, because all of
Jesus.
these lake monsters originally come from the horse demon myths. What were they called?
No, they come from the lake.
Yeah.
Got him there.
So these could all be connected. Are there any lakes in Jersey?
I would imagine there's probably a couple.
There's literally Crystal Lake.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that could possibly be a lake monster as well that has gotten out of the lake and adapted, because literally every one of these lake monsters originally were like horse monsters.
I want to point out that the Bastille, where he was imprisoned in France, was not just like a minor prison. That was a major political. What did he do to get put in that prison?
There's a whole Rush song here.
I'll tell you what he did. He crossed paths with this little fucker that was rocking out to Kid Rock, and he told him what's up.
So he crossed paths with a ghetto
called.
leprechaun. Right? A ghetto leprechaun.
Yeah, the ghetto leprechaun. But this article also cites William Hall, who apparently also crossed paths with one of these things. He cited the specter on a foggy morning during the War of 1812. And, we all know that he eventually was like the only U.S. What was he? Chief? I don't know. He's the only officer court-martialed and killed before or since due to being court-martialed. So
people kind of from him.
People look at him as a victim of the Nain Rouge, and then they go on to cite the Great Fire of 1805, the 1968 Detroit riots, and an ice storm in the 70s.
I don't know about all that, but okay.
The ice storm is a little far-fetched, but
even the riots. I mean, that's just a little.
No, I could see it. I would totally riot for that.
Well, yeah,
I could see that.
I mean, Look what it did to Mr. Cadillac. If I cross paths with this thing and it says that it wants some new speakers, I'm going to be breaking the windows of my local Radio Shack and getting him some speakers.
I'm gonna pop some 12-year-olds getting off the bus, and then I'm hitting up the Radio Shack.
But
Ooh,
I mean, that was interesting for me here to learn that lake monsters weren't just eel-like creatures, and that two of these are actually pretty sinister and not dinosaur-like.
What? Mammalian is the word, right?
This Nine Rouge thing, I don't know if anybody's seen him ever since, but I think my theory is that
where was he? So he was sighted in eastern Michigan. Is that the main area?
Yeah, wherever that lake is.
Well, you
Lake
said
Michigan.
Detroit. Okay.
They named the lake after it. So
yes, they did. That's wild. We should talk about that. Like, why?
I did more learning about Cadillac and William
Antoine de
Hall
Wolf, the
than I
Cadillac.
did about Lake Michigan and Detroit, Michigan. And I was really just trying to.
You were like, "Oh,
get as many
why
Kid
is
Rock
my
jokes as
aluminum
possible."
engine a piece of shit?" I'm like, "Oh no, my aluminum engine doesn't work right." Who would have thought?
Why? Cadillac is not a sponsor.
Well, definitely not.
Just to clarify.
Any sponsor is a sponsor to me. I don't care. I'll be sponsored by. Never mind. I won't make that joke.
After you're off some of these pain pills, you might need a sponsor.
Yeah, pain pills. They kicked in a little bit. I don't know if you could tell. I'm a little.
No, I'm not really paying
right
attention
now.
to anything. Nah.
We're just throwing some monster shit at the wall and seeing what sticks for a couple of weeks here.
So since you were off the topic of serpents, there's also the Beast of Busco, which is Churubusco, Indiana, which is somewhere northern Indiana, I would imagine, by the lake there. It's in the Maumee Valley, which takes up like that entire northwestern Ohio, northern Indiana area. It's like Fort Wayne, Decatur. Anyways, I guess they named him Oscar. First sighted in 1898. Just a giant turtle. That's all. They never found him. Don't really know size. It just says very large turtle. That's it. They have a holiday.
There's no romance.
Each June they have a festival called Oscar's Day. It's called Oscar's Turtle Days. I guess it's like a whole week, and it includes a parade, carnival, and turtle races.
All right, so okay.
He was featured in.
I take my statement back about there's no romance. That's a lot of romance to the turtle.
What was he featured in?
This card game called MetaZoo, which is a crypto zoo trading card game that plays like Magic.
Yeah. Yep.
That's fuck.
Is he in that?
Yeah, he has a card.
Yeah, we should play that.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. What the fuck is this?
We should do like live streams where we just play that.
That's the goal. I originally said when I hit 500, we're gonna live stream a Ouija board, but I'm thinking maybe we should do that at 1,000 because I think 500 is pretty obtainable. I don't have a Ouija board yet. I'm not going to own a Ouija board in time by the time we hit.
Probably topic for offline, but look how fast the Facebook group grew.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's kind of caught me off guard a little bit.
So I don't have a lot of episodes story if you want to hear it. You want to hear the Ouija board story? So I had bought a Ouija board and I lived with this. When I was living in Lancaster City, I'd lived with crackheads, and I'd had a Ouija board. He was like a Christian guy, like super Christian. Still did crack, meth, every amphetamine you could think of. But he was real intimidated by this. So I had the Ouija board, and it would just sit in the kitchen. And eventually he made me take it to my bedroom of the place I paid rent for. So what I did was I threw it away, but I didn't throw it away. I just kept sneaking it back. And that's about the Ouija board story. This dude lost his mind for a week. He was lighting candles and doing sage rituals. all throughout for at least a good
That's
6 months.
that's a good practical joke, but for some reason I don't know why I was expecting something crazier to come out of that. But that's a good method of messing with people, really. I think people do have strict thoughts and beliefs on it. So uh, it kind of takes a life of its own in that regard. And regardless of what it is or isn't, or what can actually be summoned by it, anybody with uh, any type of doubt in their belief system or how strong their belief system is it's very put off by the Ouija board. So I mean, even
Well,
Art Bell famously had the Ouija board story that he would never discuss on the air.
It'd be hard
Yeah.
to, the Hasbro toy.
yeah, right. I think outside of like the Abrahamic religions, there are like I think there's even certain groups of pagans that don't even touch the Ouija board, the Parker Brothers version specifically.
I thought Hasbro bought them.
Did they?
I
Well,
don't
yeah,
fucking know.
it was originally Parker Brothers, right? So Hasbro, Parker, whatever, same company. If that's the case.
Ultimately, it's the intent.
I mean,
behind-
I don't have a problem with the Ouija boards. I don't have a problem. What are my dogs are possessed right now? So sorry, don't look over here. I don't have a problem with anything actually, but that's aside from the point. So, but I mean, if we're gonna live stream some Ouija, let's really how are we gonna even do that?
I was thinking that we're either gonna have to all have some type of game in front of us, and then or one of us can have it, and everybody can ask questions, and then one person can be the brave one to move the eye over the board or whatever. We have some time to figure it out. We can get. I'm sure there's maybe an online version of it.
Online Ouija board.
That's not how this works. This would really be like you'd need multiple people in a room.
I'm very excited to test what we can stream live and not just do recorded podcasts.
The only reason I suggested the Ouija board was because Coast to Coast was too much of a coward to do it.
Constantly. And Art Bell had like this story that for decades was, don't ever ask me because I'm never going to tell. And obviously because when somebody says something like that, people would call in and ask. And
you can't say you're not going to tell a story and then not tell the story.
Right. So there's this podcast basically it was birthed by the idea that I wanted to do an Art Bell project. And the Art Bell project didn't work out, so now I'm just playing with my friends and meeting new people online and creating a fun group and atmosphere for us to do this.
Fun.
So in the long run, something I think better and more fun came from it. But the origin of this is my intense love of Coast to Coast and Art Bell and just paranormal broadcasting in general. And so those little Easter eggs that we can do on Sasquatchers, I think ultimately will set us above every other asshole with a podcast that talks about ghosts and shit, which by the way, Ghosts and Shit was the original title for this show. But yeah, so I think most people aren't brave enough to try to figure out how to live stream a Ouija board session for their podcast. So that's something we are going to do because we're cool like that.
I don't know if it's bravery. It might just be technical difficulty.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It might just be all of us sitting in a room telling one person.
What we should do is we should all meet at Lake Erie, call the Melonheads down here in Kirtland, and then we'll all show up like on a rock at Lake Erie, and then we'll do the Ouija board.
Well, you can lay the groundwork for the Melonheads.
With Brenda. We're calling Brenda.
Call Brenda. She's running the show.
Brenda! So what were you... Sorry, Drew. What were you saying?
No, I was just saying, you get to lay the groundwork. You create the foundation for the Melonheads because they're 5 minutes from your house, and you're going to go introduce yourself to them so that we could talk more about them in depth next time.
You guys are gonna see me on a stream at like 11 o'clock at night tomorrow night, just high fiving the melon heads and inviting them to our Ouija board seance.
And they're like,
I am planning. It's coming. I'm going to Kirtland. We're gonna find the melon heads, or I'm gonna kidnap children. I don't know which one. We'll see how it goes.
I don't see how those are mutually exclusive.
Maybe cut that part out.
No editing. We're live, unedited, unfiltered.
To tape.
Live to tape, but too lazy to edit. So I hope all of the audio sounds good.
I hope so.
Not capable of doing that shit right now. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like we've exhausted all of our banter from these lake monsters. We don't need to, go too long and overstay our welcome here. I had a good time trying to get in my Kid Rock jokes about the Nain Rouge Spectre. The only one I didn't get is that the Spectre hasn't been seen since the death of JC. You guys know who JC is, right?
Well, my name in here is JC.
Yeah, his name in here is JC.
JC's the little midget from... Oh, I'm sorry, the little person. The imp that played with Kid Rock.
Oh, I was thinking like Julia Childs, Jesus Christ, important historical figures, not
the only midget. Historical figure named JC that anyone ever gave a shit about was JC.
I forgot he existed before Kid Rock went on his fake country thing.
Yeah, so I don't know.
Speaking of Kid Rock.
Oh, shit.
He's showing us a Bud Light. That's a big can, too. That's not one of those sissy normal cans. That's a tall can.
Anybody. We here in Northern Ohio don't like them there gays.
In the Northern.
Or Southern Ohio. Well, that might as well be Fire Island.
It's basically hell. As soon as you get south of Columbus, it's just over.
Just one big, flat, gay orgy.
And everything's on fire. Rocks falling from the sky.
Being thrown by monsters in the lakes. But
I mean, we could do a lake expedition sometime. I mean, maybe next summer.
I'm all for it. I'm very available.
There's literally a boat that you can, like, we could all rent and take, and we could go on a lake expedition.
Go magnet fishing.
Well, I mean, okay, if you want to do that, we look for lake monsters, or we can find people's carburetors, whatever you want to do.
What if they're metallic?
The lake monsters could have to eat carburetors because there aren't enough fish to eat in the lake. They're like the bull shark of the lakes.
They eat catalytic converters like crackheads.
That's what keeps them going. They only have to eat one Cadillac every 600 years.
They got a belly full of copper pipes.
The lake monster's biology is what Doc Brown used to create the DeLorean.
Riveting content.
Yes. So, on that note, thanks for squatching.
Jesus,
squatch you later.
Oh, squatch you later. Fuck. I didn't even think of that one.